Hey, this is The Revolution here to give you more advice. This channel is for the future writers or the current writers that's in the process of wanting to be great writers. So this channel will give you the best opinion about particular things when it comes to writing. I have 30 years in writing. I've written 4 screenplays, 3 books, and I've recorded 3 poetry CDs. I'm an award-winning poet and author, and I've mentored several authors. So please like and subscribe to this page. So in this video, we're going to talk about when you get to the end of your story, the biggest mistakes the author makes. So as a writer, being excited about your writing, we tend to, we see that we write when we see the end coming, we tend to rush it because we want to complete our story, and we rush the end, or we rush the pace of the story becomes very flat because we rushed it and we didn't take our time to work out those really little details to have a complete story. That's one mistake that you don't want to make. Now, the other thing is, once you do complete your story, go back to your story and polish it up. And what I mean by polish it up, you have to go back and reread your story and correct if you see some misspellings or some punctuation. Just go correct what you can. Polish it up. And also, while you're reading the story, pay attention to the story and make sure there are no loopholes in your story. Because a lot of times when you're actually writing, you don't see the loopholes then. But when you go back and read the story as a reader, then you may ask yourself, okay, if this part happened, then why would this part happen? And if you're asking yourself that, then the reader is going to ask you that as well. Do not think your readers not are are not smart, because when they read a story and they see a misspelling or something happened in the story that doesn't make sense to the story, it totally turns them off to the story. So it's very important after you write your stories to go back and polish every little thing that you can. And I'm not saying rewrite the story. I'm just saying polish the story, make it solid, because you will be surprised when you go back and read your story how many things don't, some things, how many mistakes you may have written, or how, you may have skipped a word here, and when you skip that word in this sentence, make the sentence sound like this when it's, and then it makes the story sound like. So just go back and polish it, and then once you polish it yourself, send it to your proofreader, your editor, or whatever. Because if you don't go polish it first, when you send someone to edit your book for corrections, they can only edit what you send to them. If you send them an unpolished manuscript and you didn't go back and really look at your story or whatever, by the time they send it back to you and you go get your story printed, once it's done, it's done, and once the mistakes is in there, you might sell 1,000 books and then one day having to pick it up yourself after you sold these books and read it just for fun. And when you read it, you see this major mistake in there that you're like, oh my god, like, oh, I didn't see that. I sold thousands of books and I got this major, oh man. And it doesn't feel good as a writer when you see that, because people have been reading this story the way you put it out there, and they're reading the mistakes and all, and even though, and a lot of people, you have some that will, but a lot of people are not gonna say anything to you. They'll say to everybody, but the truth of the matter is that you have a few people that may uh, tell you or ask you about certain parts of your book. But one way to try to avoid this is when you get done writing your manuscript is to polish it up. Polish it up. Reread it. Go through it. I wrote a script some years ago. I felt really good about the story, and I let friends read it or whatever, and and I usually ask friends, what do you think, or about this, and this, and that. One friend said to me, she said, well, it's a pretty good story, but I was wondering, why did she? What did she think right here? And it was a loophole in the story because as a writer, the question that this person had for my script, that question shouldn't have been there. I should have covered that before I let But again, these are things that I've learned along the way, and especially if you have a lot going on in your story, you have to tie up all the loose ends in your story. By the time they get to the end, you don't want your reader to have any questions um, about things in the story, because that's the whole purpose of being a storyteller. You want to have everyone that give resolve. When people get to the end of your story, you want to make sure they have resolve. So my message to you is to make sure you go back and what I call polishing your story. Don't rush it. Don't let your anxiety of being able to say, oh, um, I completed the story. I want to get my story out there. I'm excited or whatever, because you only get one chance to do this. One chance to get it right. After that, you gotta start all over with your next story, because people will remember the last story had mistakes. So try your best to send out to put out a perfected story. You have total control over your story, and so if your story gets out there and it's full of mistakes and it's full of whatever, that's nobody's fault but yours. Take your time with it and polish it up. I'm D Revolution. Please like and subscribe to my page.